Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of This or That. I'm with Kieran, and I'm going to give Kieran two choices, all football related. And Kieran's got to pick one of those options, and I'm going to chime in with my opinion as well. There's a few tasty ones in here as well. So yeah, Kieran, are you ready for it?
I'm ready. I'm ready, bro. Let's go.
You promised to pick just one of each one.
Yep.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so first up, Prime Ronaldinho versus Prime Thierry Henry. Who you going for? That's a tough one, isn't it? Who are you going to go for? I know you love
Here
both
Henry.
players as well. Thierry
I
Henry.
do. Here Henry.
Why is that? What's the reasons why?
Because I think Thierry had a longer prime, and as I love Ronaldinho, I think on the eye, the best player I've ever seen, most entertaining. Really, like he sums up like when you talk about the beautiful game. Watching him was just like it was magic, you know. But Thierry, Arsenal legend, all-time top scorer for Arsenal. He was up until recently the all-time top scorer for France. Two World Cup finals, two Champions League finals, one Champions League medal. He's won everything there is to win in football. Was robbed of the Ballon d'Or as well in 2003. Phenomenal. I actually think if Thierry was playing in today's era, he would get a lot more credit and a lot more respect. Ronaldinho also. I think that this new generation of fans, they're so like stats orientated, you know. It's like stats this, stats that. But Thierry, for me, is unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree. I feel I've got to side with Thierry Henry as well. I agree. Ronaldinho on the eye is probably the most entertaining player to watch. The thing about Ronaldinho is he always played with a smile on his face as well. So he genuinely
Yeah,
enjoyed his job. I think the only shame is that he couldn't carry on for a bit longer because obviously he loved the lifestyle of partying and he enjoyed life quite a
yeah,
lot as well. I feel Thierry Henry, I watched him week in and week out in the Premier League, and I can honestly say that he made football look effortless at times. When he was really on it, he could destroy defenders. And defenders we had back in those days were no slouches. They were proper defenders as
yeah.
well, decent defenders. And when he turned it on, he could do everything. He was strong, he was quick, scored all types of goals as well. As you said, won everything there is to win in football. So I feel like as much as they're both phenomenal players, I feel like they're different types of players as well because Henry was a goal getter, he
Yeah.
was a machine, whereas Ronaldinho was more tricks, flicks, and as you said, just an all-round entertainer. So I definitely side with you on Thierry Henry in that aspect. Next up, we've got the World Cup winning teams. We've got Brazil 2002 versus Spain of 2010. Two great football teams, very good football teams. You have to pick one team to play in. Which one are you going for?
I'm going for Brazil.
2002 Brazil.
Yeah.
What's the reasons why? Give us your take on
I
why
think
they're a better team to play in than the
I,
Spain team.
I honestly think if that Brazil team had played this 2010 Spain team, they'd beat them and beat them
Really?
easily because the
That
difference
2010 team was a really good team, by the way.
they
Like
were a
that
really good
2010
team.
team was fantastic.
They were a really good team, but a lot of people look at the 2002 Brazil team and they think of players like Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, Ronaldo, like they think of the skill and the attack, but they had great defenders as well that could actually defend. I'm not talking about players like Gerard Piqué, who gets judged on how well he can pass out from the back. I'm talking about like Lucio was there, Roberto Carlos, Cafu. Then in the midfield, there's Emerson, there's Gilberto Silva. These players are made of steel, and maybe Brazil would be chasing the ball for a while. Don't let them get too close because they'll rough you up. They were not made of paper. They had the perfect balance of silk and steel, And I think that all great teams, they have to have that physicality. I don't think the Spain team would have coped, to be honest with you. I honestly don't.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, Mitch. I think with the Brazil 2002 team, if I remember back to that side, every player in every position was world class in that moment
Yeah,
of time. From Dida, as you mentioned, to Cafu, to Lucio, who's a fantastic player, Gilberto and Ronaldo, who had a great tournament. Considering his injury before that, yeah, Kleberson as well. Put Ronaldinho was in that team, Rivaldo, amazing players. But I feel like that Spain team from 2010 to 2012 was off the scale. I don't think we've seen any team played the way they played. As much as the Brazil team had firepower in their team, I feel like the Spain team to win back-to-back tournaments, the World Cup in 2010 and to win Euro in 2012, and the way they did, especially in the final, they destroyed Italy in that 2012 final. I feel like the Spain 2010 team was, again, as you mentioned, Brazil will be chasing the ball a lot. I just feel the reason why is because the midfield of Iniesta, Xavi, and Busquets, probably the best midfield trio, arguably ever. They would make life really hard for any team of any era, to be honest.
yeah, I agree.
That's why I would slightly go with them. But the Brazil team in 2002 to do what they did, and Ronaldo again, injury he had and to come back and to play like he did in the semi-final and the final, phenomenal team. But I feel like the Spanish team between 2010 to 2012 was just off the scale. I didn't see anything like that.
Let's sorry to interrupt you. Let's not forget as well that Brazil team. They also won the Confederations Cup the year after, and 4 years previously they were in the World Cup final as well.
98, yeah.
So they were no flash in the pan. They were a serious team.
I think that's why this choice is so hard to make. But I agree with your point 100%. But I think for me, just for go for Spain 2010, just. Next one, we've got one of your boys, prime Patrick Vieira versus prime Yaya Toure. Two powerhouses in midfield. You've got to pick one. You know, I know Patrick's very elegant and he's a captain, he was the guy, but Yaya Toure on his day was at times unstoppable. But if you have to pick one to play in your team, it's a tough one. I appreciate that. It's a tough one.
This is actually a lot harder than the previous two. I'd pick Patrick, but
why? Why would you pick Patrick?
Because Patrick, he had again the same as with Henry and Ronaldinho. Yaya was probably a more talented player on the ball. Patrick was a great leader, and again, like I think the fact that nobody talks about Patrick much these days when they talk about like the greatest midfielders of all time in the league is ridiculous, because if you had seen this player play on European nights, in the Cups, and most certainly in the league, when Patrick Vieira was playing, no one came anywhere near him, and as well internationally, France were never able to replace him properly. He could create chances for you. He could put in a last-ditch tackle. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Yaya Toure, I think, is definitely in the top 5 midfielders the Premier League's ever seen. I think he gets an incredible amount of disrespect as well. For me, Vieira is just a level above. I don't think, I'm going to go as far as, I don't think Arsenal will ever have a midfielder as good as Vieira. He was just a once in a lifetime kind of player. And you really had to see him play, watch a match, a 90-minute match. You're not going to see too much in terms of like highlights. He didn't score a lot of goals. The way he commanded that midfield, not many midfielders have done that before or after. True legend of the game.
Yeah, I agree, but I think Patrick is probably underrated in terms of being on the football. I feel like, as you said, he didn't score enough, maybe as many goals as Yaya did, but he had that presence in midfield. But he could also play as well. Like, he's very elegant on the football. He could play 1-2 football, especially in that period where Arsenal was playing the one-touch football and they changed it. He was quite good. I think probably overlooked because you had lots of Pires in there and in Bergkamp and Lundberg as well. But Patrick Vieira was definitely the glue between the strikers and the midfielders, and he had that presence. And as you said, the leader he was. But I feel like with Yaya Toure as well, again, like Henry, when he got going, he was unstoppable. If he decided to score a goal, pick up the ball from the halfway line and go and score, he could do that. That's what he had.
Definitely.
If I'm looking at consistency, season in, season out, performances, 8 out of 10 every week, Patrick Vieira does that. He was consistent. He was a leader. He set the standard in that team. And I think with Yaya Toure, it's arguable that maybe he had off seasons as well. I think apart from the 2013-14 season where he scored double figures and had an insane amount of assists, there's not many other seasons where he produced that. Whereas I think with Patrick Vieira, you knew what you were going to get. He was a captain. He didn't score many goals. But again, when there was big game day, he'll turn up. He set the standard. He was a leader. So if you're looking at reliability, you can have for Patrick Vieira. If you're looking for ability on the ball and winning the game on your own, then maybe Yaya just about takes that. It's a hard one. But you're going for Patrick Vieira.
Yeah. One last point on Patrick. Arsenal never won again once he left, and that's important. He was irreplaceable. Whereas Yaya Toure has been replaced a couple of times over at Man City. Yeah. So I think that has to be taken into consideration as well, because Arsenal have had very good midfielders since, but none come anywhere near the level of Patrick. I think if Patrick was playing today, would be easily a £100 million midfielder.
100%. I agree, 100%. I think the players back then were just different breed, weren't they? Just different mentality. On that pitch. Okay, next up, we've got goalkeepers now. I think two you know pretty well. We've got prime David Seaman against prime Jens Lehmann. Two Premier League winners, Highbury, both at Highbury as well. Both won the league there. One was invincible. One of them won a double as well.
Yeah.
So you see both of them play. So I mean, this must be really hard. Jens Lehmann was a very good goalkeeper. David Seaman as well. He was Arsenal, man, in the 90s. He was the guy.
Yeah. Do you know? I'm gonna have to go with David Seaman. I'll explain. First of all, I want to say I think that Jens is another very underrated player, and he's certainly my favourite Arsenal goalkeeper of all time. But why I'll go with David Seaman is because he was also a very talented goalkeeper. The longevity, even now, like in today's game, where players are so much more fit and they have their own personal dietitians, as David Seaman played for Arsenal for 20 years. David Seaman was at Arsenal in the 80s, all the way until 2003 when he retired. So that in itself, is a phenomenal. David Seaman went to 3 World Cups. I just think that David really is, and you have to look at what he achieved as well. I think David Seaman won the league in 3 different decades. I think the only other player to have ever done that. I could be mistaken, but I think David Seaman won the league in three. I know for a fact Tony Adams won the league in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, and that a very special achievement in football, But Jens Lehmann, the one thing about Jens, he had this weird temperament where
He's German,
he
isn't
could
he?
be
So
riled
yeah.
up. He could be riled up really easy, and I think if he was playing today, he'd be sent off a couple of times a season, because he'd go and he'd grab players by the neck and push them over, which is really bizarre for a goalkeeper. But
But
he'd run
German
the length of
goalkeepers are always very like they're quite. It's like Oliver Kahn was quite crazy as well at times.
yeah. But I think, but it's good as well because I think that a part of that is missing today. That character, and that personality. A lot of players now they're just like robots.
Yeah,
But I'm going David Seaman.
Steven. Yeah, I find it. I think obviously Jens Lehmann was an invincible, wasn't he? And I think in that 2003 or
Yeah,
4 team, if you're looking for Oliver Kahn in English football, he was that guy. I think in the Premier League there was no better keeper during that period than Jens Lehmann. To be
no,
fair.
certainly not.
Yeah, I think until Petr Cech came along, I think until Van der Sar, I think Petr Cech and Van der Sar, well, you could argue and say that they were just as good or maybe better than Jens in different ways. But Jens Lehmann, when he joined Arsenal, he was the best goalkeeper
Yeah,
in the division
definitely.
by far. So yeah, the last one is a tasty one, and as you said, you're going to pick one, so don't bail out this one. You can support one team for a day, yeah, one team for a
Mm.
day. Is it Man United? You're not going to support Spurs, are you? You're not going to support Spurs as an Arsenal fan for a day.
Do you know what?
You're going to go for Man United because you can't support Tottenham for a
No,
day
I
as an Arsenal fan.
am. I'm going to support Spurs.
Really? Over Man
Yeah,
United?
as long as it ain't against Arsenal, I'm going to support them over Man United.
Why? 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 Do you hate Man United that much?
I do. I
To support
really
North
do.
London rival over United for a day.
Yeah,
I do know.
I,
Sorry, I don't know. Would a lot of Tottenham fans say the same though? Against if
I,
it
I
was,
don't Chelsea, for example, like because I know Tottenham and Chelsea in the recent years have had a big rivalry, but I'll let me qualify it and I'll explain why I made that choice. Yeah,
very interesting choice. Very
so
interesting.
growing up, so I was born in '91, so from then until maybe like 2006 was the first time really when on the final day of the season, Arsenal needed to win and they needed Spurs to not win to finish in the top four, and Spurs went down with food poisoning. That was the first time ever that Tottenham were in direct competition. I guess it's the same for Man United and Man City. In our lifetime, we've seen Man City play in the Championship, in the old Division One. So a lot of Man United fans would not really feel the same kind of disdain for City like some of the older generation of fans. I never looked at Tottenham as like a direct. I pitied them. They're like the little, yeah. They never looked. Whereas Manchester United, growing up, they were the scum of the earth. They were the
Yeah,
rival.
likewise for Arsenal.
Yeah,
The reason being is because we're in direct competition for
yeah.
trophies.
That's it.
And the managers had their rivalry. The managers had their little spats at times. The King and Vieira again. So that game, especially when it was at Highbury, that game felt like the biggest thing ever because I feel like, as you said, rivalries in football now don't have that same edge. They don't have that same life or
No,
death feeling
no,
about it. Do you know what I mean?
At
Whereas
heart,
back then, we genuinely, because we were going for all the trophies, but there's a genuine dislike between
yeah.
both
At, at,
clubs.
at full time, you will not see the players going and hugging each other and talking to each other with a hand on the mouth. No, when they're not even going down the tunnel at the same time because there could be a punch up, and sometimes there was a punch up even on the pitch. The managers disliked each other, the captains, everybody, because they knew, this is a serious right. That was the peak of British football. And I know people will argue and say, "Oh, but Man City and Liverpool, they finished with more points." I don't care.
No.
Man, at the end of the game, they're shaking hands. The managers are hugging each other. Like you're supposed to be in competition, and you're all pally. You're going for dinner together. What the hell is that? That's not rivalry. Not real, true.
I guess they call it a friendly rivalry. That's what they say.
Ridiculous. No wonder Liverpool have been in Man City's back pocket for the last 6 years. You know,
But having said
and
that, though, Kieran, I mean, we're talking about back in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s. But as we speak now, Tottenham have been, you could say, in direct competition. I know they're not winning it, but you've been competing for the same places, though. So would you rather support them for a day? The United rather, again, it's not been as intense as it was, a couple of.
it hasn't. But do you know what? Yeah, I always look out for Man United's results when I'm having a bad day, and when they lose, nothing. If Tottenham win or Tottenham lose, it doesn't really matter to me. I'll be honest. I obviously they are. I love beating them. They're like my favorite beating stick. When I look at Man United and I see them winning, it burns my skin. I hate it. I really, really, I will always. I don't think until my dying day I will hate Man United. Do you know why? Like, even though we're not necessarily like the games are not as ferocious as they used to be, and we haven't really been in proper direct competition for a number of years, the Man United fans, really like they fuel the fire, because not really you. I think you're like
I'm one of the.
you're
Listen,
borderline.
I grew up in areas. I know. Look, I agree with your points. I feel like Arsenal. Listen, I don't hate clubs. Like I've always. Listen, I respect Arsenal massively. Again, growing up, they were the ones who we wanted to finish above growing up. And I thought
Yeah.
the reason why there's such a dislike there, you're right, the fans playing this part. I think social media culture now is also very influential now as well, because everyone's got an opinion about stuff now who don't necessarily know a lot about football. That's a fact. But with Arsenal, I've always got that massive respect for them because they were the ones who Man United were dominating. They came along and they disrupted that dominance. They became a
Yeah.
team that became a genuine threat. And again, Arsene Wenger coming in, changing football, how it was played. And he's the only manager I've really seen get under Fergie's skin, genuinely. But there's also been a respect there in the end. As you mentioned, back in the early 2000s, there was a dislike there. Now there's respect in a way. But you're right. I'm looking for Arsenal. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say when Arsenal lose, it doesn't amuse me. Of course it does.
Yeah, no, I was listening to what you're saying. Do you know what I think? Arsene won the respect of Ferguson when he went unbeaten, because I think Ferguson, a famous quote where he said, "I won a lot of titles. The one thing I was never close to doing was going a season unbeaten. That's probably the most special achievement in British football history, and it belongs to Arsenal." And it's true. It is the greatest achievement in British football history, and it does belong to Arsenal. And
Is
it
it, is
belongs
it,
to
is it
Arsenal.
bigger? Is it bigger than the treble?
It is bigger than the treble, because if Manchester City win the Champions League next week, they would have. You could argue. I mean, I'm not of the opinion that this treble is better than the '99 treble, and I'm not of the opinion that this team is better than the '99 team either. A lot of people will say they've eclipsed that. No team come close to eclipsing the Invincible side, and I don't think they will. In our lifetime, I don't think we're going to see another team go unbeaten in the league, because it's that difficult. It's a super achievement, and it makes me laugh, really. I see, like, when people talk about the greatest Premier League teams ever, they got Arsenal down in like fifth. I'm like, what? Do you
You
realise
know
we're the
what?
only?
This conversation is going to be a different video. I think we need to have this conversation, especially if Man City do the treble against Inter Milan.
Yeah, I hope
Which
they don't. By the
I
way,
obviously hope they don't. But I think to finish off, I think your point about Arsenal being invincible. Listen, you could draw all games throughout the season and be relegated and be invincible. So I think if you
but
want
we
to win
won the
three
league.
trophies, yeah, you won the league. But if you win three trophies, three major trophies in a season, that is hard to do. But typically, towards the end of the season, you're probably playing a lot more games than the rest of the other teams. April, May, business end, that's when it gets more intense. and the quality is going to be higher because you're playing in semi-finals and you're playing in finals. To win 3 major trophies in a single season is extremely hard to do. As much as going invisible is, to win, especially in this day and age, or just in any era of football, to win 3 trophies, especially one in Europe, that is hard. It doesn't get done. If it was easy, it would be done every season. But it's not.
If Arsenal, so that season when Arsenal went unbeaten, they didn't bail out of the cups either. They went out in the semi-finals of the FA Cup to Man United, the quarterfinals of the FA Cup to quarterfinals of the Champions League to Chelsea. They went out in the semi-finals of the League Cup to Middlesbrough. So they went deep in every competition. So it's not as if Arsenal didn't play a shit ton of games as well. They did. Arsenal played a lot of games. The majority they won, a hell of a lot more than they lost.
That's a great team. That's a great team. But again, that conversation is going to happen in different videos. I think we need to have it. There's been a lot of debate about the best team in Premier League history, and there's a lot to choose from as well. There's quite a lot to choose from. So we're going to get to that in a different video.
I look forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah. But listen, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with our picks for this or that? Is Ronaldinho better than Rivalry? Would you go for prime Patrick Vieira over prime Yaya Toure? And also, do you agree about Kieran's take about Arsenal be the best team one of the best teams in Premier League history? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe this video. And we're going to be back with more content very, very soon.